What you don't know can hurt you, and what you do know can set you free. That's why we interview subject matter experts for your small to medium sized business and personal finances, because knowledge is power, but experience is everything. Welcome to The Tipping Point. The Tipping Point is brought to you in part by Tirani and Velez LLP, your tax and accounting subject matter experts. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Gabriel Velez. Our guests today are Marinas Dykstra and Alika Chuck, inventors of SureShot, a robotic injection system for dairy and the beef industry. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
appreciate it, Gabriel.
Thanks for being on. I appreciate it. So, this show, basically, up until this point, I've been interviewing people from adjacent industries. Now I want to talk to an actual entrepreneur in business, business and development here. Okay. So, you guys are in the process of developing this injection system for cattle, basically, for immunization. And so I kind of want to get a little bit of backstory on that and see how it came about. So, Marinas, could you tell us a little bit about your background in farming and
Yeah, so I was born in Holland and came here in 1999 on an internship for school. So we had to do a practical internship for about 4 months, and so I decided to stay. So I've been here ever since. I went back maybe twice, but in the meanwhile, I worked for about 2-3 different dairies, and then this latest one, I became a partner on the dairy. And we had a meeting at one point with a pharmaceutical company, and they brought in some vets from Wisconsin, Wisconsin University, and they taught us about this program called double offsync we used to time AI cows. So then we developed this whole program to give these certain shots to cows in a certain amount of time, and then AI breed them on a certain day and having better results than the average by a long ways. So while we were doing all this, we really came to see how big of a issue it is on compliance. Certain times we did really good, certain times we did really bad, and just the performance of the cows would show that by either getting pregnant or not get pregnant. And so then, meanwhile, I met Alika Chuck, and he was working for us on a compost business, and we were just kind of talking about it and saying, hey, what if we just automate this whole process and get 100% of the cows the right shots all the time? So we just talked about it and said, hey, let's research this, and we came to the conclusion there was nobody that had anything like this, and we said, hey, let's just write a patent. So Alika took that out himself, and I'll let him explain that a little bit. And so, fast forward a little bit, we've been talking to a lot of investors, first VC investors and then angel investors, and that's who we're talking to now, trying to raise the money to actually finally build the very first prototype. And that's where we're at today.
So this sequence of injections, part of it's immunization and then part of it's hormones for breeding?
Hormones for breeding, yeah. It's similar to what humans would use when they have issues with fertility. And then the vaccines, it's various vaccines we give to keep them healthy. There's all kinds of diseases out there that we can vaccinate for. So it's a total of about 15 shots or so per cow per year that they would get, which, we milk about 3,000 cows on 2 different dairies. So it's very labor intensive. We have about 4 guys working for us full time, finding these cows 7 days a week, basically.
Got it. Okay. And then Alika, when he came to you, how did you guys figure out that there was a gap, as far as a real need to automate the process to make it more, accurate and efficient?
Yeah. So essentially when he came to me with this idea, going back on the amount of shots that he was discussing, putting that into perspective, it's about 54,000 shots per year on just his dairies alone. And so that's a lot of shots, and you have guys that are looking for these cows to give these shots, but They either miss the cow entirely or give the right product to the wrong cow or the wrong product to the right cow. And so there's a lot of room for error. And we just ran some numbers in terms of potential savings that dairy farmers can have on the labor aspect while making huge gains on the reproductive and immunization side of things. So after that, like you said, I wrote the patent. That was a fun challenge to take on. I spent a lot of time on YouTube tutorials learning how to do that. So 40 pages later, we submitted that, and right now we're about 16 months out from having it granted. So if all goes well, we'll have that patent granted to us.
Got it.
So-
So can you talk a little bit about the actual product? You know, I don't obviously want to give away any trade secrets, but just what you've presented so far, and what's public knowledge basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to take it?
Yeah, so basically it's an installed on an exit lane of the milk parlor. So 100% of the cows get milked twice a day, some cases 3 times a day. So we installed like a gate system, like a catch gate basically, that reads their RFID electronic tag and does facial/skin recognition. Holstein cows have a very unique pattern. So to recognize them by that, if the cow is needed, it then gets trapped within those gates. And then it gets scanned for what kind of shot it needs, and then it just robotic arm itself sets it up to give the right shot, and then it'll inject it into the neck, and then the cow just goes on her way again. So we can catch them basically twice a day, every day, which then would turn into 100% compliance.
Yeah. And so going further onto that, there's a lot of points of data that are going to be recorded that's really valuable to dairy farmers, such as point in time shot was given, what type of shot, the amount of shot that was given, how much the cow weighs at that specific point in time. And it's an exciting system because we want to run some studies in the future to really optimize those numbers and change the animal health side of the industry and improve it as much as we can. So through machine learning and statistical analysis, we hope to achieve that.
Got it. Okay, so not only is it a more accurate injection? I don't know how like precise the actual injection has to be.
Not super precise
Yeah.
necessarily in the neck. It has about a triangle of 6 inches by 6 inches that you can give it in. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's to a certain extent precise, but it's more about getting a needle in there far enough. It's in a muscular, that it goes in there far enough. If it's sub-Q, that it's right underneath the skin. I think that's one thing that generally speaking, workers are not able to do on a consistent basis. So those are the 2 things we can definitely solve, and then obviously giving the right shot to the right cow.
Yeah, it's better for the cow as well, right?
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, by doing these studies, our goal is to actually use less medication while getting a better performance. I think that's definitely our goal in the end of the day.
Yeah. Overall, it's less stressful for the calf too because.
Yes. I mean, normally speaking, right now the cows are gonna go eat, and that's when they have guys walking in front of them, finding these cows, and then giving the shot as she's eating through a locking mechanism at the feed line. So this would basically, after she's milking, it's gonna be a lot quicker. It's gonna be processed about 15 seconds. There's a lot less stress. So.
Got it. And then they have to be like held captive currently in
For
in
just
a
a few seconds to be held
Yeah.
captive in it's somewhat of a sorting gate, and it has like a restraint in there like they use now on beef lots. It's kind of like a squeeze chute, they call them. It's not going to be as intense as the beef cows, but yeah, we're going to be holding them somewhat still. That way, the cow won't get any damage for her health, and obviously keeping the robot secure also.
Got it. Okay. So there's this seems like it's a pretty technical system. Like there's the robotic arm portion to it. There's the scanners, and then there's a software. So all of that is currently in development and in the concept
Correct,
stage.
correct. A lot of this stuff is already out there. We're just really just putting everything together. The end arm tooling, the needles itself, stuff like that. We have to develop that.
Yeah.
But the sorting gates basically already exist. We're just modifying that a little bit. RFID systems already exist. There's just a lot that is already there that we're just basically putting together.
Got it. Okay, and then like, can you describe a little bit of like the entrepreneurial journey and how you decide how this is going from a concept to business plan and what your process looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take that. So Marinas and I, we've been working on this for 2.5 years now, since July of 2017. And so, like you mentioned, we filed the patent, and in 2018, we attended an accelerator program put on by Dairy Farmers of America and Sprint. And so that was kind of our really first turning point in terms of learning how to form a startup, especially in hardware, where it's just a lot of nuancy things need to be known in terms of like when you're talking to VCs, like which VCs to look for, as well as angel investors. And so that was definitely a good experience to get us in front of the right people right off the bat in terms of learning how to structure our company and learn how to develop a certain strategy over time. And so in terms of that, we attended the accelerator program. We also have 4 other partners on the Farm Robotics team who specialize in dairy equipment, renewable energy, and software. And so they've been a lot of help on in terms of consulting and advising. And when we approach like the right investors, typically go to them for guidance and help. But yeah, also Marinas mentioned how we started off the VC route, which was totally wrong, but it's one of those things where you don't know until you do it. And like we definitely made the mistake of going on that part first because they're not looking for pre-prototype people to fund. So after spending a couple months on that, it was still valuable because we still gained quite a few connections in ag tech, so they'll be handy in the future. But we started wrong, and now we're on the right path in terms of talking to the right angel investors in terms of like really specific niche part of the industry.
Got it. Can you describe the difference? Because maybe some people don't understand what the difference between like an angel investor is versus a VC, a venture capitalist.
Yeah. So usually, angel investors are wealthy individuals that are looking for really early stage opportunities to either get together in a group of people and invest money, or solely be an investor themselves. And whereas VC firms are more later stage focused, post revenue, post prototype kind of capital funds that it is generally a group of people that pour their money into like Series A or Series B companies rather than seed/beginner stage.
Got it. Okay, and then VC funds venture capitalists are usually firms, usually professional firms whose job is to.
Correct. Yeah. So that's usually their sole job, to scout out companies that have the potential or in growth stage that they then invest into. So obviously when we approached them, we were nowhere near that part. But again, it was just kind of out of being naive and new to this and trying to learn what the startup world's like.
Yeah, I think it's important to just talk a little bit more about this process. So, basically a VC's funds, a VC, their job is to make a profit for their investors. So they are a professional investment firm usually, and typically they will ask for some control over the company.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So either a board seat or some kind of typically also a lot of equity too. In later stages, and they are really looking to push a company as hard as possible for a year, 2 years, 3 years to get to a liquidity event where either the company goes IPO or gets bought out by some larger company, and then they can show their returns to their investors who have provided the capital to them.
Right.
Angel investors are typically more direct in investment and typically a little less hands-on, more early stage, and kind of just buy into the concept.
Correct. Higher risk with a bigger return is really what they're after.
Yeah, really, really early on.
Yeah.
And then obviously the other way, which is really hard with startup companies. Is if you can the other way to raise capital, right? It would be like debt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
but that's more difficult because most people don't want to lend to something that's only in the concept phase.
Correct,
Exactly.
correct. And in our case, we have a lot of hardware, and there's a lot of companies that are not really interested in the hardware. They like the software aspect of it, but they don't like the hardware.
Yeah, they don't like hardware. Yeah, they think what hardware is kind of.
Yeah, just
yes,
It's outdated, maybe. That's
Yeah, I
kind of
don't know.
the perspective we've kind of received from people.
yeah, and then it's just it's a large investment for relatively a small return. Like our prototype, for instance, is going to cost about $473,000, and it's the large aspect of it is the hardware.
Yeah.
Even though you need it to be able to succeed in what we're trying to
And
do.
have those software capabilities and data analysis
Correct.
capabilities to create an AI platform.
Yeah.
So it leads to the software. It's just you have
Correct,
to start with the hardware.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, hardware is really capital intensive early on.
Yep.
And then once you could get past the prototype phase and you actually start to manufacture these things in volume, at that point the cost per unit goes down.
Oh, way down.
And a company,
Correct.
and a company can, that's why 4K TVs 3 or 4 years ago they were $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
Now you could get them at Costco for $1,000.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. Versus the software is not as much capital, not
Correct,
as capital
correct.
intensive early on.
Right.
But yeah, so that's interesting. So that's the experience you've had so far in trying to kind of pitch this thing. What not trying to get too far into the weeds, but just like your overall business plan. Obviously, you have a target market.
Correct.
It's pretty niche, right? So that's where you guys
Correct.
are
Yeah.
focused.
So our target market is basically the largest dairy farmers in the United States, which is about 25% of dairy farms. But on the other hand, they milk 75% of the cows in the U.S. So yeah, it's not a huge market, about 9,000 dairies that could potentially adapt this. There's also dairies that already have robotic milkers, so we're thinking of getting after them too, which that's not a huge amount yet. But then again, it's like just our 3,000 cows, we give 54,000 shots. So the repeatability of the pharmaceuticals is huge. So that's where we really see the profit in the long run. It's
Yeah.
just a lot of cows, a lot of times.
Going off of that too, like going back to the robotic milking statement. So dairies in the U.S. are expected to increase robotics usage between 20 to 30% over the next 5 years. So robotics isn't really going away anytime soon, especially for the larger dairy farms. So it's kind of just a matter of time before they start really adopting all these different technologies.
Got it. Can you put into dollars and cents what what do you think the compliance rate is right now, and percentage wise, and then can we put that into dollars and cents?
Yeah, so right now the
What's it?
compliance rate from studies that University of Wisconsin did, they think it's about a total of 70%. So let's say like the cows need a sequence of 5 different shots, and they miss 5% of it every time. I mean, you're looking at 70% or 75% compliance in that case. So they've been doing some studies. Money-wise, we're thinking we can get up to about $150 per cow just on performance, and then more or less $100 a cow on labor. It depends obviously on the performance, what dairies do. I mean, the very worst, could potentially be a little higher, up to $275 a cow, and in the better performing dairies, looking more at like $100 to $150 per cow. But it's significant. I mean, these dairies are 600 cows all the way up to some dairymen we talk to 150,000 cows. It's big money.
Yeah. And so going off of that, it also depends too on like how many guys are utilized to give shots to cows. For instance, if you use a just like a pre-sync program versus Marinus, he's using double off sync and 100% timed AI. His program is going to require more guys to give those shots because it's just more shots in the sequence. Whereas with pre-sync, you don't necessarily need like 3 full-time guys finding all those cows, but that depends too on like the size of the herd and current pregnancy rates, stuff like that. So there's a lot of kind of niche things that, or nuancy things that dairy farmers have to take into account, which is why we have a template for dairy farmers to fill out their info. That way we can guesstimate their ROI through the model that we built.
Got it. Who's regulating this and like decides what the the compliance needs to look like?
Well, there's really no regulation necessarily. I mean, we think, obviously we need to try for 100% compliance. I mean, we looked at different RFID systems and then camera systems, and I think between both those we can easily get that 99.9%. Which in turn and obviously leads to more pregnant cows, less sick cows. That's really where the return on investment is going to come from. But there is really no regulations right now, and there's no traceability right now either. That's the nice thing with ours. We can track the cow from, basically the day she starts milking and till she leaves the dairy. So there's a lot of, I don't know. There's a lot of money left on the table right now, so to speak. So.
And not only that, there's, today the world that we live in with everyone being concerned about like where their food is sourced from. We just want to help alleviate those worries and, really ensure that we're doing the correct thing for the animal and the best thing in an animal health standards perspective. That way it's just one more thing that's accounted for consumers.
Yeah. So the process of the process now is what each cow has a RF tag, like
RFID, correct.
Okay, so
and not all of dairies have that either. There's still a lot of dairies that just use a hand list with basically just looking on a list and looking for the cows all manually. There's a lot of dairies now that do have RFID, so you basically walk by with a scanner and it'll tell you like, hey, I need this cow, I don't need this cow, and then still we still have to give the shot if it's vaccines or repro hormones by hand, and like you still don't know 100% sure that the guy actually gave that shot to that cow, even though she's been scanned.
Yeah, so. There's no like visual record of
correct
it being injected.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
And then there what is there any way? I mean, I guess you wouldn't do like blood tests or anything to check if
no, I mean the only way to really check if she actually never got sick in big studies, or if she actually got pregnant or not pregnant, right? Like that's really the only thing you can do. I mean, you can't really, maybe for vaccines you could do blood check, but not for those repro hormones. They get absorbed really quick. So
got it. Yeah. So yeah, you're coming off and your whole system is just a lot better than what is out there right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are there any competitors that you know of in the market or anything similar to this at all?
Currently, no direct competitors, but indirect competitors. There are robotic milking system companies out there that do have the resources to potentially enter our space, but we're in the final stage of our patentability process, so hopefully once that comes back and we file a continuation of the patent and add some more claims in there, we can defend ourselves a little better for the future.
Yeah.
But as of right now, there's no systems out there like ours, what we're developing, that we know of.
So why did you guys decide to kind of join forces?
Yeah, actually, Alika asked me that the other day. It's like, Alika happened to work for us at the time, and he's a super smart. Like, he went to Chapman University and always did really good in school. And when we ran a compost business, he took over from another guy that took another job, and like we got to know each other over the course for about 2 years prior to this, and he was just a really good, smart guy, hardworking, and. I just decided, hey, let's talk to him about this. I mean, obviously, we've seen each other multiple times a week. So, but yeah, he was just a good fit. And like, as we talked about it, like, hey, maybe we should just write a patent ourselves, meaning Alika. Yeah, I mean, it just started off clicking really well. And here we are today. And yeah, it's working good.
Yeah, no, thanks for the comments. My perspective on it is like, for instance, we went to a trade show a couple weeks ago with showcasing our system, a 3D video of it, and we're walking around the trade show, and like everyone there like knows this guy. Like he is probably one of the most well-known dairy farmers in the industry, and we couldn't go 10 feet without him stopping and like talking with some guy in the industry. And we're just like, come on, dude. But at the same time, like, it's, you got to respect that, because like Marinas has been in the industry for like 20 years now. And so I worked for him for 4 years during college, like he said, managing the compost operation. And I think we make a really good team because he has the industry specific knowledge that I don't. And he went to college for a little bit in Holland, but doesn't have like a full like college degree, like formal education. But I think I was able to learn quite a bit at Chapman to apply it to this project, and helped out a lot on the business development side. So at the end of the day, I think we go hand in hand and make up for each other's weaknesses. And I think the strongest kind of point is when we do disagree on something, we're really good at coming up with compromises very fast.
Yeah.
So I think that's crucial for like any co-founder out there. As a matter of fact, I remember during the accelerator program, we took this leadership test, and him and I forget the exact what type of test we took, but him and I like were basically the same, and it was measured on kind of like this circular scale. And the further out you are on the circle, basically it's just like the more events you've been exposed to in life to make you more definitive. And so him and I were like basically the same type of leader, just he obviously has way more experience than I do under his belt. And so I thought that was cool, and it tangibly showed that him and I make a good team. So it's been cool working with you, dude.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Thus far, what do you think the timetable is? And currently, I guess Alika, you're handling most of the pitching right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, what kind of traction have you gathered so far from Angel?
Yeah. Great question. So we're actually pursuing a little bit of a different route. We're talking to a large industrial automation company that's interested in teaming up with us. So we're working out the details for that right now, but it's looking good that we're going to go with their parts and some of their integration aspects. So we're starting off there, and then we're also taking on, we've been recently pitching to a large grain brokerage. And so hopefully all goes well. We have good feelings about that. But as far as timing goes, once we're funded, we could see a prototype within the next 4 to 6 months, and then hopefully go to market within 12 to 14 months from now. So that's kind of, we've shifted a little bit from, I'd say, individual angel investors to more companies that are specifically looking at like what we're doing and how it would benefit them, rather than just casting a wide net and not really catching any like fish that we're taking in for mutual purposes. So I think we're talking to the right people now. I think it's kind of just a matter of time, and I've been pitching for the most part, but he's in there with me, and we make a good team too in terms of answering questions together and things of that nature.
Yep.
Where's the farm located?
We're in San Jacinto, which is Riverside County.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 dairies there. They're about 5, 6, 7 miles apart, something like that. The one dairy we milk about 1,700 cows at, the other one about 1,300 cows.
And that's a big operation as far as...
On average for California, we're probably a little bit over average on one, right at average of the other one. Nationwide, we're definitely, a lot larger than average. I think nationwide, we're probably at 400 cows, I think, something like that.
Yep.
So, yeah, but when there's dairies out there that milk 150,000 cows. I got friends of mine that milk 50,000 cows. So, in that aspect, we're not huge, but yeah.
Great. What other parts of the journey do you guys want to touch on?
Well, I think next. I mean, obviously, we want to take this one off the ground, right? And you get a big market share, in the U.S. Furthermore, go to other parts of the world. Asia, I think, is going to be the next. Saudi Arabia. After that, I mean, we talked about maybe going into robotic milking or something along those lines. The robotic arm we're using is really similar to the milking robotic arms. So we kind of talked about stuff like that, just in automation, since we're going to be talking to the same dairyman, just expand it in that way. So that's our
Got it. So not just one product. This will be your flagship product
correct.
Yes.
to begin to launch a whole
Correct.
Company that will
Yeah.
take
Yeah,
over.
like the robotic arm we're working on now, we call that Sure Shot, and our business name is Farm Robotics. So yeah, we'll probably expand our line of robotics hopefully in the future.
Got it.
Yeah, well said. Yep.
Awesome. Well, it was great having you guys on. Where do people find you, and what types of people are you looking for right now?
Well, so our website is www.farmrobotics.net, and we're both on LinkedIn. I go by Alexander Chuck on LinkedIn because it's my legal name, but everyone calls me Alika. And Marinus is on LinkedIn as well, Marinus Dykstra. And yeah, do you want to share as far as people we're looking for?
Yeah, looking for. I mean, we're really just looking for dairy farmers eventually that might like our technology. We were at the trade show the other day. We got a lot of letters signed of interest, not necessarily intent, but for instance, we talked to probably about 50 dairymen. We had 25 out of those 50 sign a letter of interest, and it came out to like 250,000 cows, and literally really just one day.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of interest in there, and that's really who we're reaching out to. Obviously, angel investors. I mean, if people are interested in our or investing in our company, I mean, they're more than welcome to check out our website. All our contact information is on that. So
yeah, and additionally, like in general, if there's any like hardware entrepreneurs listening, like feel free to hit us up because it's definitely a different landscape, especially when you're dealing with robotics in a high capex kind of situations. So if you need help, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help anyone any way I can.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.